All right, welcome back. This is another, hopefully final episode to this ARMA Spectrum saga. Here's the overall CAD design view. I had to make a few changes to the mounting bracket, and I even think this is out of date, but here we go to the assembly. As you can see, I printed out the Raspberry Pi case and the SDR case for the BladeRF. I'm just doing the wiring between the Raspberry Pi and the BladeRF, and then kind of put it on the back to show you what it'll look like. So there it is. Definitely need the screws to hold it steady with the cable. There's a little bit of play. So here's kind of a look under the hood. You can see the SSD. Had to make a cut there with the Dremel tool. Didn't quite fit. I fixed it in the CAD, but didn't quite fit from the first print. So it's okay. And then I had to make a cut too for the power button on the Pi 5. Didn't really expect it to be bumping against the side of the case, but it was. And then here's the adapter it came with the HDMI cable from the 7-inch display screen. So it didn't really quite seat all the way, and I ended up replacing it with, I think, an ON cable, ONN. And so it fit a little better into the side of the case and fit a little more flush. But it would probably work. I didn't test it though. I just found that the ON worked a little better. So here's the ON cable. As you can see in a second, all the cables don't really line up the right way. You have to twist them a little bit, but it does fit a little better. I do have that fan on there so far. When I've run the Pi, it has not kicked on, so it's still doing pretty decent on cooling, but I haven't put it under a heavy load yet. And so here's powering the board from the Pi, so powering the SDR, the display, all from the Pi. But I ran into some power issues with that, which you can see here in a few minutes. All right, here's the setup. Again, just working on the Raspberry Pi configuration at this point. So connecting to the Raspberry Pi from the SDR. I'll paste the files I used to get it up and running for GNU Radio, but it wasn't anything crazy. It was actually worked out simple for once, so I'll have the commands in the comments. And then I finally got the screws in, so I can finally mount it. I did run into some issues with the mounting bracket, had to reprint it in half, so I cut it in half. It's longer because of the antennas, but it does work. Just a little long. And then also from this, I ended up not using one set of screws. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. I'll update it on the GitHub. And then I also found out that if you can see at the top, the lid for the Raspberry Pi, the screw holes are just way too long. And so as you can see, it just takes me a few minutes to get the screws driven all the way in. So yeah, I left myself a little sticky note over there to remember to do it. But yeah, so it's coming together quite nicely. Until I put all the cables on, then it kind of gets a little ugly. But I did add a spacer, I think, between the Raspberry Pi and the bracket. So I don't know if you'll see that or not, but it is there. It's just for kind of stability and covering up the screws to mount the Raspberry Pi to the actual mounting bracket. So, and as you can see, all the cords are starting to get a little excessive. It would help if I had some shorter cords, but I don't. So I just used what it came with. All right, got everything plugged in, so I'm going to test it out. I do have the keyboard and mouse plugged in just for easier access, user interface control. So I'm getting warnings already about the power being insufficient, which is fine because I don't have the correct power supply from Raspberry Pi. And then here is the handles. So as you can see in just a second, even with, I think I put the L-shaped on there, I still run into that issue. It's not quite perfect. Yeah, especially right here. This is the main culprit. The L-shaped I think was okay, but that USB to SDR was not good. So I redid like I said before, redid the mounting brackets, had to print them in half, and then I had to print them, which makes it a lot wider. Had to print it also diagonally on the printer because they were so long. And the printer I'm using is the Ender 5 Pro, I think. So here it is. I just kind of marked screw holes on the handles and then drilled a little hole, screwed it in, got it all pieced together. So there's another issue. I think maybe instead of ordering the wrong, too many long screws, I ordered the wrong size of one of the screws. That's why they're coming through so much. But it does work. It fits. It works for now. So I try to clean up the cables a little bit. It's still messy, not great. The L-shaped, the L-shaped adapters for the SMA ports are fine. They're not the best, but it does work. There's the HDMI, just another cable to throw into the mix. And then here we go, first boot up. Fully assembled boot up, I mean. So, and then, you're trying to use the touchscreen with the Pi running everything on insufficient power, or insufficient amperage, I should say. It just doesn't really work. It crashes. So then here I'm externally powering the display and then using a keyboard and mouse. But it does work. As you can see, I'm actually getting signal data, and then here's the view from the Raspberry Pi. So I had to change a few variable names. They weren't quite right. And so in the actual GUI right here, when I would change the frequency values, it wouldn't actually change the value. So fixed the variables and it all worked out. So trying to do a Baofeng test. I think it was too close. It really kind of saturated the entire spectrum. Yep, right there. So you can see the whole spectrum kind of jump. So it does record it, but it's too close. It shouldn't probably do it. Even on low power, it was on low power, but maybe I can put a little more distance for sure in between. So, but worked, recorded the file correctly. It wasn't really usable, unfortunately, due to the just intensity of the Baofeng. But it did work, and then it does transmit. I've just got some dummy file I'm transmitting. I think it's just a recording of a radio station. So it does transmit in just a sec. Yep. And then I do confirm that on my SDR, like RTL SDR from Newelec, I think, on a separate laptop. After a few mail calls, I finally got a suitable power supply. So in just a second, you'll see there's no little lightning bolts that pop up or any other power warnings that I have to worry about, which is really nice. And it does actually power everything from the Pi. You don't need to power the display separately, the SDR separately, or the Pi separately. It all runs from the same source. And then here it is, just tapping on the screen. The touchscreen works. Everything works properly and how I expect it to, or how you would expect it to. So I'm going to load up the GNU radio and just go through the example program, which is the program I've been working on the whole time that simulates the ARMA3 usage. In just a second, there it is. And then we're going to go ahead and play that, and you should see the spectrum come up. Perfect. The only issue is there's some harmonics that I've got to sort out later, but I'll get to that eventually. But overall, it works. So super happy. Just need to find a portable power supply, and then it'll all be set. I am still continuing to work on some other projects. So the ARMA remote control grenade launched UAV, UAS, whatever you want to call it, is still a work in progress. I've kind of taken a pause on that. And then I'm also working on, I don't know if you're familiar with the Cardputer, but I'm also working on some little add-on modules, boards for that. So stay tuned. There's definitely work going on in the background that you guys are going to hopefully want to check out. So, oh, and also if you want to see other content, if you want to see BladeRF specific content or anything like that, just please drop a comment. Let me know. I'd love to produce whatever you guys want to watch. So, thanks, and see you on the next one.